And it's Saturday the 1st of April, April Fool's Day, and it's a bit grotty outside. And apparently we've had the wettest March for 40 years, according to the BBC, which is a good thing because it means we won't be standing at standpipes in the middle of the summer trying to collect water, hopefully. And yes, April Fool's Day. Hopefully nothing's going to go wrong today, but what I've got to do today is resolder my throttle cable nipple onto the cable that comes out there, because my soldering skills are not quite up to scratch and it just sort of like detached itself the other day. So that's a little learning process. Then I've got to tighten up this here nut, because this one's now from Rupert Ratio. It's not made of Chinese chocolate, and hopefully it won't strip the thread like the last one. I've borrowed a torque wrench from my mate Patrick, such that to make sure that my torque wrench down there, I suspect it might be out of calibration and over tightened the nut. And then I'm going to try and fit again this downpipe and silencer now that I've been to FECT, and they've shown me another C15 silencer which looks exactly the same fit, form and function as this one. And so I know I've got the right, sorry, not silencer, downpipe. So I know I've got the right downpipe. I've just got to make sure I can fit it correctly. And which means, first of all, I think I need to scrape out all the carbon out of that exhaust port, help it go in a bit better. It's a bit yucky in there. So that's my Saturday afternoon lined up. Better than sitting and watching daytime television. And it's about an hour and a half later, and I appear to be having a working throttle, which is lifting up the throttle in there. And hopefully the soldering that I've done is now more professional and will hold this cable in place. And I've also fitted the choke cable, so I have a working choke. The choke is going up and down inside there as I'm moving this handle, and again it requires some precision cutting of cables and soldering of thimbles and putting everything together in the right order. But hopefully that's that job done. And it's Thursday the 6th of April, a gorgeous spring day. Just been for a ride on my lovely machine down to the seaside, down to a cafe, and to Britbits, where I bought some of this stuff. Look at that, EP90, yes indeedy, that's from the gearbox. And I went to the BSA club last night at Longham, saw Brian, and he wants me to take a photograph of this spare front bumper so that I can send it to him so that he can see if he can have a use for it. But I've also bought from Britbits a very useful left-hand nut to fit on that there thread. And I've also bought an engine stay and mounting bracket, because the book says I need an engine stay and mounting bracket. I don't know why, because the engine's pretty solid in the frame without an engine stay, but yeah, that's what it's got in the book. But hopefully, now I've got my EP90, I am eventually going to put this timing in a timing cover on there and fill it up with the EP90, the gearbox, and make sure that the gears work. Plunk, plunk. And then I'm going to check by kicking over the engine that the oil pump works and squirts oil into the oil tank. That's today's aim, but I know it's not going to happen as I planned. It never does. And it's Tuesday the 11th of April, and it's persisting down. We had a great Easter bank holiday, lovely warm weather and beautiful sunshine, but today the weather's changed. This is what April's all about. So, and I had a great ride on this 100 miles with Southampton District Motorcycle Club down to Portsmouth and back. But now that's just waiting for the weather to get dry. And I've been shopping again. Got myself a nice set more of adapters for my torque wrenches to make sure they all work, and bought myself a new torque wrench, because the other one that I was using in there is 40 years old, and I'm not convinced that it's calibrated at all, and I needed it, so I bought a new one. Now, despite the fact I've been sitting on this chair for hours on end and staring at this motorcycle for hours on end, this motorcycle is not restoring itself. So I've got to get stuck in and do a bit more work. So I've been seeing my mate Pete, who's got another C15, and he's shown me that this clutch cable can be routed across the frame and down through this compartment and out, and then across through the gap between the chain over to the clutch. So that's what I'm probably going to do today. Get the clutch working. Then I'll take this inner timer cover off that I've put on, and then put it back on again, but this time with a gasket. That helps. And maybe put some oil in. I just bought some EP90 and engine oil in, gearbox EP90 engine oil, and then turn over this and see if I can make sure that the oil is being pumped into the oil tank. And it's an hour later, and I still haven't done my timing side, but what I've done is fit the chain, which needed a bit of routing past the frame in there, and this bolt, because there's a boss behind this chain guard, and I routed it incorrectly, and it was all making graunchy noises. And now I've put it properly on, but I think there's too much play, and there's not enough adjustment left, so I might have to take a link out. But that's something that's quite manageable. But I've also had some success with the clutch cable. I went to see my mate Pete, and he had this routed down across the frame, so I've done the same. So we've got the frame down there, and it goes into the battery box down there, and then it comes out somewhere down there, and then it just there it is. There we go. That's it. And when I do this, when I do that, it does this. In other words, the clutch is working as it should. Well, assuming that it is making the clutch plates detach from each other. Anyway, I'll go and have a cup of tea. I think that's the best plan for now. And it's April the 18th, another fine spring day. I've just come back from the seaside for a lovely ride on this machine, and then had a long weekend away in this machine, although it wasn't as pleasant as I hoped it would be, because we got stuck in the mud. We went to the Overland Adventure motorhome show in Stratford. Stratford was lovely, but the mud, like a quagmire. Got out eventually, but need an awful lot of help. But back to the motorcycle project, and I've been shopping again, and I have bought a tab washer, which I need to stop this nut rotating on the end of the camshaft. And I also bought what appears to be the correct size thrust washer to replace what I don't think was the correct size thrust washer. So I'll be discarding the smaller one of those too. But 3 steps forward and 2 steps back with this project, as ever. I did the water test on this cylinder head, and it showed that there was no water leaking past these valves. But I then put some WD-40 into the exhaust port there, and left it overnight. Well, not overnight, for about 5 nights, to be honest. And it slowly weeped past the exhaust valve. And as you can see here, there's bit of WD-40. So there's not a tight enough seal there. So I've got to re-grind those valves in. And at the same time, and simultaneously, I have got to get this bike looking a bit more like a motorbike, because I want to take a photograph of it to send to the DVLA to get this bike registered and legal for the road. It's a convoluted process, which means I've got to fill in form V55/5 and forms V765 to and then get it all signed off by the BSA Owners Club, because they're the experts. They'll be able to tell the DVLA that this is a genuine BSA motorcycle. But it's going to take quite a few weeks, so what I'm going to do is put the bike together to make it look slightly like a motorcycle, even though I'll then have to take the head off again and do some more work before I get round to getting it complete. So it's going to be putting some bits on and taking some bits off just to get the thing registered with the DVLA on an otherwise gorgeous spring day. And it's 3 hours later since I reground in the valves with my trusty valve grinder, and then I filled this up with WD-40 because it's thinner than water, and it seems to be holding. There's no sign of any leak into my little plastic container down there, so fingers crossed, but I'll leave that for a day or two. And in the meantime, I have been a little bit busy with my oil pipes because I have fitted this oil pipe yard, which is the feed pipe going to the manifold there, and the other one on the other side, the return pipe. So I've just got the gasket lined up for the timing side cover. Made sure everything right in there. Got the little dots there, the to line up the camshaft and the crankshaft pinions, such that pistons on top dead center. And next job, I think I'm now ready to put this timing side cover on and turn over the engine and hopefully see oil coming down one pipe and going up the other pipe. Down one pipe and up the other. But in the meantime, it's beer time. And it's Thursday the 20th of April, another glorious spring day. Bit of a chilly easterly wind blowing, but otherwise beautifully sunny out there. And I just watched the SpaceX rocket launch, first time in history, the biggest payload ever. And it went up for 4 minutes and then just disintegrated. So it's going to be a while before I get my rocket launched because I've had another setback. So I was grinding in these valves again, and I filled this chamber up with WD-40, and sadly it leaked through. So I need to do some more valve grinding. It's all gone into here. Oh dear. But I've had a bit of a success. I fitted my chain fitted. The only problem is, it says I need 112 links, but when you put 112 links on, the chain's too loose, and it's at its maximum extension of the adjustment. So I need to take a link out or talk to someone and find out why it's too loose. There might be something I'm missing there. In the meantime, it's back to the timing side, and hopefully today I really am going to put this inner timing cover on. All the obstacles have been overcome. I've got tab washers, I've got gasket, and I've done the oil pipes. So we're ready to launch the timing cover onto there. I think I've said this once before. Hopefully I'll get it right this time. And it's Friday the 21st of April. And true to form, we've got April showers and it's cold. So spring is coming and going, but I spent all yesterday afternoon grinding in these valves yet again to try and get them nice and get a nice seal. And I've done the water test again, and it's been staying overnight, and none of it has leaked through into this plastic container. So I think I'm going to call it a day on grinding in valves because I need to move on with this project. And I also spent an inordinate amount of time trying to find somewhere in the books what torque I should put on this nut when I put it on there with the spacer, and I couldn't find anything, so I'll have to use my own judgment when I do that one up. I have a tab washer and I put the inner timing cover on, and I spent millions of hours trying to work out how to get the split pin in that hole, and I think I need to get the thing into 4th gear such that that hole is slightly at an angle so I can get at it. But today's job is to fit the clutch cable, just finish off fitting the bolts on the inner timing cover, fill up the tank with oil and the gearbox with EP90, and then turn over the engine and see if the oil flows up and down these pipes as it should do. And then hopefully, if I get a chance, I'm going to check that the alternator. So I'm going to put a multimeter onto these wires and check if there's an output from the alternator, and take it from there on an otherwise miserable April afternoon. And it's Tuesday the 25th of April, lovely blue sky up there, but it's pretty cold for this time of the year. Having said that, my son is in Seville in Spain, where they've just announced that they're having a heat wave, 40 degrees, so I hope he's got some suntan lotion. But meanwhile, back to the motorcycle project, which is proving very frustrating because I've filled up the tank with oil, and I put a little timing side cover on, and my next problem is that I struggled so hard to put that clutch cable in, but I managed to get there. And also the split pin that goes in there, I'm struggling to get that in as well. So I bought a slightly less, a split pin with a slightly smaller diameter, which hopefully will fit in there and stop that pin coming out. That's all it does. It doesn't have any weight or stress bearing properties. It just stops that pin moving. But the problem is that I went to try and get oil flowing down these pipes and it didn't. So I got several issues. One, well, is it an airlock? Possibly. Is it the oil pump just ain't working? Well, I can't imagine that, because it's got two sets of gears which go round and round, and unless those gears are not there, then they've got to be pumping the oil. And the other thing is that these feed and return pipes could actually be the wrong way around, because at a later stage the BSA design made the feed and return connected at the other side of the pump. So all those three things are possible, and I've now got to work out which one it is and resolve it. Next technical challenge on this otherwise lovely April day. And it's 1 hour later. I'm celebrating with a cup of BSA tea because I looked at Rupert Ratio's book, and there we go. And he says that crossover is only for later models. For my model, it's not crossed over, so I've got the feed and the return right. But what appears to be is that I'm only able to turn this engine over at about 50 revs per minute, where once the engine's running it should be turning over at 500 or 1000 revs per minute, and all this oil will be flowing. So what I've done, I've connect start, and I whack this round as much as I can, and I'm actually observing eventually that the oil, you can just see it coming up there, a little bit at a time, up the rocker feed pipe, making its way over to the rocker feed, which I've got in that little pipe. So it's working. It's just that I haven't got the, there it goes, the power to rotate the engine at the right speed. So everything's working, which is a relief. So next thing I'm going to do is put this timing cover on, and then I'm going to anneal the new head gasket that I've got, fit a new head gasket, fit the head, fit the rocker box, and onwards and upwards. But first of all, I need to drink my cup of BSA tea. And it's Thursday 27th April, and it's just been persisting down. 13 degrees, not very nice day really, but tomorrow it's getting up to 18, and a bit of sunshine. Time to go for a ride on the motorbike. But the restoration project is going 3 steps forward and 2 steps back. I managed to fit the outer timing cover, but getting the spring in there was a nightmare. But the distributor clamp screw has been filed down by the previous owner, and it won't go in, so I need to get one which hasn't been filed down. So that's a trip to Brit tomorrow. And in the meantime, I have fitted the head. I annealed the head gasket, having checked out on YouTube what to do, put a new head gasket on, and now I'm just putting on the head gasket, the head nuts, so I'll be able to torque those down. The only problem is, on the other side, you can't get a torque wrench in there by any stretch of the imagination, So I think I've just got to use my own engineering judgment on how tight to make those based on how tight I make the other ones. I've turned over the engine. I got a little bit of spark coming, or not spark, electricity coming out of those cables, but I don't think I'm going to get too much until I actually fire up the engine and it goes around at 500 or 1000 revs. So yeah, making progress, just waiting for the next technical issue to jump out and poke me between the eyes. No doubt it won't be very long. And it's the best day of the spring so far, 18 degrees, lovely sunny day, Friday the 28th of April. Just been for a ride down to the seaside on my lovely BMW K1600. And I had a late night last night because I wanted to get a lot of work done on the motorcycle project. So what I'm actually trying to do now is get it ready so I can take a photograph of it, then send it off to the BSA dating officer, and then get the ball rolling for getting it certified with the DVLA, such that I can get it taxed and insured. And last night I finished off by fitting the head. I couldn't torque down these nuts here because you can't get a torque wrench at them, so I had to do a guesstimate based on the other side. But I've got all that together, and I put the rocker cover on and tightened that all down. Then I adjusted the tappets in here, which is great because the last time I did it on the inlet side, there was a 2mm gap indicating that the wrong type of valve had been inserted by the previous owner. It was an exhaust valve off another bike, but now I've got the right valve in. I've just adjusted it to 8 thou on the inlet and 10 thou on the exhaust. That's great. Fitted the exhaust pipe, I still need to get a bracket to go on there, which I'll probably make up myself. Job for today. And I fitted the silencer, but it still needs its own bracket, which I'll also make to connect to the rear footrest. So, and then I put the tank on. I needed to do that to take this photograph, and also such that I can fit the oil feed to the rockers. There you go, up, the other way up, and bend this pipe through 90 degrees so actually it doesn't foul on the underside of the tank, and then connects onto the this pipe, which I'll cut to length. Yes, so I'm going to be putting the primary chain case on as well this afternoon, and then taking it outside, and it'll look like a motorcycle for the first time rather than just a box of bits thrown together. On an otherwise gorgeous sunny Friday afternoon. And it's still Friday the 28th of April, and I've had a really productive day, and I've rolled out the bike like a ship being launched into the sea. I decided to put all the bits on because I need to get this bike registered with the DVLA via the BSA Owners Club, and they need to see that I've got a functional motorbike. Well, something that looks like a motorbike rather than a box of bits, which is what it was. And I just finished off a few more jobs. I fitted this bracket here, which is all a bit rubbish, but it's functional. I'll have to get a better bracket, and I've still got to do the bracket for the exhaust pipe, and I've got lots of other little jobs to do, but including setting up the timing, setting up the carbs, and trying to fire it up. A bit worried about the gearbox, but I will only be able to tell if it's working properly once I've got the engine going. But I'm really pleased that I've now got something that looks like a motorcycle instead of a box of junk, which is how I bought it 2 years and 1 month ago. Ooh, beer time. Definitely beer time.